You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in Northport, Florida. I've got a very, very special guest in the house, straight from the Public Works building, Mr. Billy Carlson. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing pretty good, John. Doing all right, all things considered. How are you?
I'm not too bad. We've it's been a while since we talked, and
Yes,
we've had some major situations break out within
absolutely.
public works because of Hurricane Ian. And I would kind of like to get your overview of what's going on real quick. Um, we talked about a little bit about collections just prior to going live,
Right.
but can we talk about Price Boulevard real quick and
Sure.
just kind of give an update there?
Sure. Absolutely. So, in case you hadn't seen last week and the week before, we have a couple sections of Price that have been reopened to allow a little more fluidity in the neighborhoods off of Chamberlain and Cranberry, Salford. The waterways, the two waterways that were closed off between Chamberlain and Salford have been repaired. One is fully open, everything, like normal. And that's the one over closer to Salford. And then the one between Chamberlain and Cranberry is open with some temporary uh, barriers on the side of the road because they are still working with the utilities work on the side of the road there. But those waterways, the crossings are up, they're running, they're open. And then the big ones that we have left, obviously, are between Toledo Blade and Chamberlain and between Salford and Sumter. They are working hard every day to get those roadways repaired, get them back up and running as quickly as we can, because obviously those are major blockages that are kind of hampering traffic through the city.
And I'm going to say this because truthfully, you know I remember Charlie and the things we went through with Charlie were totally different, fast moving. This was a slow moving storm that dropped a lot of water, brought a lot of water shed from up north of us into
Correct.
our community, and we had four, really five or more uh, roadways or waterways that were affected on roadways, Hillsborough and then Price Boulevard, let alone the other flooding. But when you have these, and I don't want to call them bridges, they are water bridges. They're not true bridge, but they're water outlet bridges go out. That's still major construction or reconstruction, isn't it?
Correct. Yep. So it actually was probably 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half after the storm before I was actually back over in the public works department. From my work over in City Hall through the EOC and everything, during the storm. And then when we had the McCaughey waterway that we were reopening that crossing, we took the gator from Public Works down to the site because the rest of the roadway is impassable. And to see the level of damage that was done because the on the south side of the road, the ground is just completely eroded out, washed out. And what that did was obviously eroded the support for the roadway. Just massive chunks of the roadway washed away. So they had to, obviously rebuild the bank, rebuild underneath the roadway before they can even talk about repaving it. Um, so there's been a lot of work. It's been fairly impressive how quickly it's come together
Absolutely.
to have the McCaughey waterway back up. That was the one, obviously, everybody remembers we had closed over the summer for 4 days there to repair erosion there. And then, who knew a 500-year storm is coming our way a few months later to wash everything out. But yes, there's been, and part of the problem, especially with the Crichton Waterway, which is the one between Toledo Blade in Chamberlain and the waterway between Sumter and Salford is the utility lines that were also running alongside those roadways. And so there's been a certain amount of utilities work that needs to be done there, and they had to repair those. My understanding is they've moved some of the utility lines so that they'd be less prone to this kind of issue going forward. Be a more stable situation. Um, but there's been a lot of work that's gone into it. The contractor that we're using has been extremely busy, which I think speaks volumes about the level of work that he and his company do. My understanding is they're working on several washouts in Sarasota. So this contractor has been extremely busy, and they have just done, I think, an exceptional job getting done what they have to this point, even.
And I brought in the conversation of Charlie and the amount of reaction time, and I had this dialogue today, and Chuck English, he was around back then, and several other listeners that are out there now listening in. The 30-day mark, um, that we have is just a couple of days away, a few days away.
Right.
Um, and really, if you were to sit back and judge a 30-day mark realistically, I cannot believe where we are today with the speed and the care and the accuracy of things that are going on right now, because we're not just fixing roads. We're fixing roads that we're going to be fixing roads for a long time, because they're not designed, one, for the type of traffic that they were hauling.
Right.
Two, they're not designed for the water that goes underneath the road, uh, and becomes like this mush pad that goes up and down. And I just think we're, for the next probably 5 to 10 years, we're going to be, yeah, repaving roads, but I think we're going to be rebuilding some roads versus the repaving process that we were used to seeing,
Sure.
because those roads are damaged underneath, and that is due to the flood side of things.
Right. Right. I think to so I've lived in Florida my entire life. I'm 38 now. I've spent my entire life from Tampa South. Grew up in Naples, lived in Tampa for 10 years, been in Northport for 11 and a half years now. Um, to see a storm like Ian, um, where the eye went east of us, and that when you're in the hurricane, you're just waiting for the eye to get there, for a little relief from the maximum force of the storm, and for it to move just east of us, and for us to never actually see the eye and spend 6 or 7 hours in the eye wall, just taking maximum winds, all the rain that it could dish out. It's not. I've never seen anything like it. I've never, in 38 years, I've never experienced it. Um, the level of water, obviously, that we saw in Northport was not something I don't think really anybody could be prepared for. As Elizabeth Wong, our stormwater manager, has mentioned several times with media requests, it's a 500-year storm, and it's just not our system, as we saw last year with the 100-year storm with Tropical Storm Hurricane Elsa, uh, really put a strain on the system. So for a storm like this to be here as long as it was, to provide the wind damage that it did, and bring all the water that it did, it's unreal. I can't say I've experienced anything like it. And for us to be in a place now where I believe Saturday or Friday marks exactly a month since the storm's landfall, and we are over 600,000 cubic yards of tree debris collected, which is just an insane amount. I was speaking with Frank Lama, our solid waste manager, and he said after Hurricane Irma, we had 51,000 cubic yards of just storm debris altogether. That's trees, C&D debris, all your other waste, 51,000 cubic yards. And that was collecting until December at that point. To, to be almost a month out, and they've collected over 600,000 cubic yards just tree debris has been insane. And especially if you go around, just drive around town and some of these neighborhoods, you wouldn't know they've been there to collect anything. That's the massive cleanup job that we're looking at. To be that deep in debris collection, and obviously still plenty left. To have the roadways, especially Price Boulevard, with the damage it took to be at a point where we're almost there to have it completely reopened. To go through one of our other major operations is stop signs. Everybody probably in the city has been through an intersection where they know, hey, there's a stop sign there, but it's not there. Uh, it's just one more monstrous effort that Public Works is undergoing to try to bring things back to as normal as we can. And I think at a month's point, we're doing a pretty good job. And I
Uh,
know some
there,
neighborhoods may not feel that. I know some neighborhoods they haven't started debris collection there yet. Some neighborhoods might feel like they're forgotten, but I promise you, you're not. And it's a matter of time. We are getting there. The name of the game at this point is patience.
can you talk about the debris that's in this picture? Because I know that you know this site,
Right.
but there is some perspective in this picture, and it's the little trucks,
Right.
the real little small trucks that are there,
Yep.
because they're not really little trucks, are they?
No, no, they're big vehicles. If you've passed any of the collection trucks, you know they're not small. They're not small trucks. Um, it's insane the amount of tree debris. And we did a comparison post on social media last week. You may have seen. I believe it was Thursday, either Wednesday or Thursday. We were crossing the 500,000 cubic yard mark, and for comparison's sake, I believe it was 20,000 uh, solid waste, yard waste trucks is what it would take to collect that amount of yard waste, or that amount of tree debris. It would fill the big dome, Spaceship Earth, at Disney's Epcot Park 6 times, starting into a seventh comfortably. It would build by the amount of cement or concrete that was used to build the Braves Kona Day Park, was like 12,500 cubic yards, somewhere around there. It would build 40 of that stadium just based on the sheer volume of what's been collected already. And in talking to Frank, it doesn't seem like it's going to stop anytime soon. He's estimating possibly 2.5 million in just tree debris.
What's our normal? What's our normal?
So our normal, and this was one of the first things I wanted to, when we started to get back to me working with Frank and working with the rest of the Public Works folks, when we wanted to put a comparison post out there from like 1 week out, we I don't remember what the number was, but it was an insane number we collected in just the first week. Um, our normal yearly cubic yardage for yard waste was something like 4,000, and we're already more than 100 times past that. So that should give you an idea of just, and that's why I want to emphasize to people, like, if you feel like we've forgotten your neighborhood, or we're not, you haven't seen us, I promise you, they've set about on their path, and it's taken much longer than we anticipated originally because of just the sheer volume of what's there to be collected.
So I'm going to ask this because Chuck actually kind of references the trucks a lot. And the payment of those trucks, where does that come from? Those big trucks that are out there, is that part of the cleanup through the federal government, or where? How does that work?
So my understanding, as it is now, we have a contract with a contractor, Cirrus Environmental Services, and we've had a plan in place with them. We've had a contract in place with them. We posted about it last year ahead of hurricane season. We had a meeting, sit down meeting with them for planning for the hurricane season. My understanding is they're going to collect it, and at some point, FEMA is going to reimburse Public Works or the city of Northport for the cost of that collection. And that's the emphasis on getting out there as quick as we can, because you have originally it was a 30-day window, and then obviously President Biden doubled the time period for federal reimbursement. So there, and that's not to say that 60 days is all it's good. We're going to collect for 60 days and that's it. We're going to be here collecting until it's all collected.
And there's nobody that's going to tell him that it can't extend for another 30 days at this point, because they can always extend more. But I want to go back to those trucks for a second, because the second side of Chuck's comment was that some of those trucks aren't filled completely. But I'm wondering, and I'm just throwing this out there, just my mechanical mind is working, and I look at some of the weight and the weight limits that those trucks may have and what they're carrying. They may look half empty, but their haul might be something significant,
Right.
where you can't see it. Correct?
Right. So I'll give you an example. If you go down just even Tropicare Boulevard, and they've been doing, actually in the last probably week and a half, 2 weeks, they've been doing a phenomenal job down Tropicare Boulevard. Before they arrived there, if you drove down Tropicare, and even some of the side streets off Tropicare, it's both sides of the road, trees, just not even just limbs, but entire trees, just stacked. I mean, 6, 7, 8 feet high down the entire length of the road. And so it's not just piles of limbs and branches and, sticks and leaves and pine needles and stuff that they're collecting. That there are several, it's trees, it's whole trees. It's, even if they're cut up into smaller chunks, it's whole trees. And those are not light. So yeah, even if it looks to you like they may not have a full load, they could have 20, 30, 40 trees sitting in the back of that container.
And really, Chuck, he's bringing up good points, and they're valid. With the trucks that are out there, even though they've probably waived some of the weight limits, we're still not trying to overload these trucks and destroy our roads at the same time. Correct?
Right.
We'd rather see multiple drips than just big heavy loads, and cost thousands of dollars to the roads after, because these same roads that we're talking about being on right now are the
Right.
same ones that are really at some point compromised from what they were originally at.
Sure.
And I know that the trucks being heavy, first off, second off, they're pulling a trailer that's just as heavy as a truck sometimes. That can be a massive undertaking for the road.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to go to Ginger here. Ginger says, "Do the trucks have weight limits?" And here's my question. I'm actually seeing these things, and I don't know if you know the weight limit on them, but I would think that the guys that are hauling this stuff have a good gauge. They while they know that there's no weight limit going to be judged on them, I'm sure that they are not trying to overload either.
Right. I would have to say I'm not familiar with whatever weight limit there might be on the trucks. But again, most of these guys, I'm sure, have CDLs and other, licenses and things like that, and they're aware of what the equipment's capable of and what puts a strain on the equipment. Because again, to your point, they're not just it's not just the truck. It's they're hauling a trailer. Some of them are hauling two trailers. Plus the claw equipment that they use to pick up the trees and everything that they're picking up. So I have to imagine most of these guys have a pretty firm understanding of what their trucks are capable of, and what would uh, what would constitute maybe pushing it a little
Yeah,
bit.
and here's the thing. I think when I had my CDL, so anytime that you're driving a vehicle of a larger size and you add weight, now you're definitely engaging in stopping distance. There's safety factors that go in to driving these bigger vehicles on roads that are not uh, in the healthiest of shape, a lot of them, but we're also not wanting to cause any more damage or an accident because the vehicle was overloaded, something happened. There, I think there would be more of a we would be more susceptible as a city if we were to allow that and just kind of say, no, that was part of the whole cleanup. I'm
Right.
sure there's still some controls and some restrictions because we don't want to put anybody in harm's way, or we don't want to put the city in a monetary situation to have to get sued because something went wrong. So
Right.
there's all kinds of factors that play into hiring these guys right from the start, and that's why you held these meetings early. And I think the fact that we're talking about a preemptive side of things, uh, to 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 your point, is that all of the pre-planning is evident today based on the fact that we're not 30 days in,
Right.
and we're talking about some stop signs not being up. We went through something we haven't. Most people that have been here in the last 25 years, they've never seen anything like this or a flood anything like this.
Right.
Let alone the people who've been here longer.
Sure. And that's another point. And I mentioned it earlier. The level of water that we've seen. I live in the estates, and I think I've said it before on here. Most of us that live in the estates and have lived in the estates for a while, we understand there's a certain amount of water that we're going to see, especially during rainy season, and with September being as wet as it was. I think that was part of the issue, is that everything was already saturated. Uh, we had an incredibly wet September, and we had some neighborhoods that the streets were overrun with rainwater from a good afternoon thunderstorm. Granted, it dissipated within an hour or two, and the water went on its way. But that gives you an idea of just kind of what we were dealing with already. Um, I live on the dry side of the estates. I live east of Sumter, and our street was ankle deep in water, from my understanding. Going off what my wife was telling me as the storm was going on, our street was ankle deep. The entire length of the street was ankle deep by 1 o'clock, and that was before the worst of the storm was here. Before the water really got here, um, it eventually peaked on our street where our mailboxes were half underwater. And we're on the dry side of the estates, and our street was a good 4 feet underwater. So I mean, it was just it was a monumental amount of water,
Yeah,
uh,
it's
that
insane.
I think very few cities that were built in an original floodplain would be very well equipped to handle. Um, it just it was mind blowing to experience it all.
Well, and we've talked about this, for a while, and I think we're going to be talking about it for quite some time because we're going to see, and I think the critical thing for people right now is we're going to see things on our roads and holes in our roads that we haven't seen before, and I really think the North Report app is going to be a huge value in the real near future to get you guys back on some sort of normalcy. Can you kind of promote that a little bit?
Definitely, definitely. So the North Report app is on the Google Play Store. It's in the iTunes App Store. Um, Free to download, free to use. You go through if you have an issue. We're going to have plenty of potholes. I think, obviously, I know our road crews have already been out starting to repair some of the potholes that have been reported. Um, you can, hit submit concern or report concern, and it'll bring up your if you've got your location, on your phone. It can bring up your location. You put in what your issue is. You hit submit, and then it goes to the city. The city offices, over at City Hall, they'll dish it out to whichever department is responsible for it, and then we'll get to it as quick as we can for sure. And we understand that a lot of people have street signs missing and stop signs missing, and these are things where proactively we have crews going around trying to replace them. We're going kind of neighborhood by neighborhood, knocking out what we can. And obviously, if you have, your stop sign in your neighborhood is still down, please give us a report, and either we haven't been in the neighborhood yet, or we may have been through the neighborhood and missed it. There are a lot of signs. We don't have a full count. Actually, I was just talking to our operations manager today. We don't have a full count of just how many signs are within the city, but there are obviously a lot, and they're going through knocking them out as quick as they can, for sure.
So let's talk about the pickups and the debris and things like that. I know that we've been all over this. As far as the trash collection goes, I think it's been far beyond outstanding. Just because we've been on the road, I think within the week, considering that uh, the bridges were kind of causing us issues on getting trucks out,
Right.
because there was only one road out, and that road was also full of people trying
Right.
to get out and go to work and different things like that. So it definitely has presented issues for you guys at Public Works that I'm not so sure that, and I'm going to say this out loud, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that we actually had a full game plan for all four bridges being out on price.
I don't know. Obviously, you want to be prepared for worst case scenario at any given time, but I
Correct.
don't. Again, when you're talking about a 500-year storm,
Correct.
and the amount of water we got, that was primarily the issue for these waterway crossings being damaged and washed out. I don't know that you could ever truly fully plan for something like that. Um, it helps that Chamberlain itself has been accessible. There was no real heavy damage to that roadway. I think it speaks volumes that I mean, our street in the estates was underwater a full week after the storm. So I understand there are many neighborhoods that still have water, and we had our guys out there collecting trash in the neighborhoods they could get to. As recently as a week after the storm. And they picked up where they left off, because our last collection before the hurricane was the Tuesday right before the hurricane, and you know, uh, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday didn't get collected, and so when it came time to start collecting back on Wednesday again, it just made sense. Hey, let's pick up where we left off, um, which I know some people were unhappy with, because they felt like, well, we've gone a week without collection, and now we're going to have to go to next week. But if we'd started with our Monday group on Wednesday, you're talking about some people would have been almost 3 weeks without a collection. So we started on Wednesday, and there's obviously a lot that the Tuesday after we had originally started collecting again. And this was the most stark contrast we could find. Um, when we came back around to our Tuesday routes, normally I think it was 1,000 tons of garbage and recycling they would pick up. And that first Tuesday that we collected after the storm, it was 4,000. So, I mean, you're talking about 4 times as much garbage as usual. So we understand they, some people were picked up way later than they normally expect to. And we understand some people might not have got picked up Tuesday night and they had to come back Wednesday morning. And it's once again, and we've kind of harped on it on social media and everything too. We appreciate everyone's patience because again, patience has been the name of the game when you're talking about our garbage trucks and their routes taking when you're collecting 4 times as much, you're making more trips to the landfill, and everybody's making trips to the landfill. So the landfill wait times are longer, and everything about the process is just slowed down and takes much longer. And I can tell you, our solid waste drivers, I don't know that they've gotten back to their normal schedule. I know for the first couple of weeks, they're coming in at 6. Normally, they collect from 7 to 3. A lot of our guys are out by 3. Some stay till 5. We've had guys here collecting. They get here at 6. They leave here at 6, Monday through Friday. It's been the level of effort from Public Works, from Solid Waste, all our guys here. I mean, they're working their tails off. So again, I've said it a couple of times, but the name of the game really has been patience. Everything we're trying to do just at this point takes longer, given the circumstances.
And Bill brought 1992 up, and I wasn't here in 1992, but I've watched our roads change, and I know that you weren't here in 1992, so you didn't have firsthand knowledge of it. But maybe if Chuck does, he can share it real quick in a text or a comment. But I I got to believe that our roads changed since 1992. After that event, I'm sure that things were looked at and things were, and I hate to use the word upgrade, but anything that we're doing right now in analyzing these water passages, they're upgrades from where they were because they were too small, obviously, to handle that. But it was a 500-year storm, not your everyday or every year storm.
Right.
And we really have done a phenomenal job. That I'm wondering in 1992 were these passages, were they smaller or were they the same? I have to believe that in 1992 when that happened, if they eroded the same way, we had to think, well, we better make them a little bigger.
Right.
And I'm wondering if Chuck knows that. I don't know if you do, but it's just like we're analyzing now, and we're having these companies coming in and say, listen, we're going to put a little wider here just in case something happens again.
Right. Right. And I know they've spoken. Being at the few media engagements that we've had Elizabeth Wong at, I've heard her speak on it. We're researching and taking a hard look at what needs to be done to obviously the odds of something like this happening, a 500-year storm, are supposed to be very slim.
Yeah.
She's saying I think she was saying it was like a 2% chance or a 0.2% chance that it happens. But obviously those odds existed before it happened this time. So it's something you want to be prepared for. And it's definitely something that's being looked at to see what can be done different, what we can do to be better prepared for the next time. Obviously the water control structures, for years we've been replacing or updating, outdated structures. Just as recently as this past June, we had a water control structure on the Cocoa Plum over by Hillsborough and Collingswood that we had taken out the old rusted holy metal one, and replaced it and built a new. And the water control structure that we had, the erosion issues around after the storm over near Winn-Dixie, we've changed the shoreline a little bit to better combat the potential of erosion the way we saw it happen during this storm. with when you're talking about the volume of water that we had and the 6 or 7 hours of just maximum wind banging this flood water against the banks. And obviously we saw what happened. The banks washed out and it ate into the parking lot, and the water was just kind of going around the water control structure. What you'll notice though was the water control structure still standing there. It's still intact. It's still functioning. And now what they've done is hardened the banks there next to it to hopefully prevent it from that kind of thing happening again.
And I'm wondering, when we're analyzing Price Boulevard, uh, hopefully when we just bite the bullet and everybody votes yes on these referendums, uh, because we're going to be in real chaos if we don't do something with Price Boulevard the right way. And I know it's not going to make everybody happy, but sometimes you have to act like a city and you have to build yourself like a city, and you have to stop pretending you're not one. I think it's time that we step up and do something on Price Boulevard. I hope everybody reads your ballot. I hope everybody reads the referendum very closely and they understand exactly what they're doing. Uh, because if you don't want Price Boulevard to get widened, I guess you're voting no on these referendums. But if you want it to be done, and I hope leadership uh, shuts down the BS that everybody wants it soft. I'm done with soft. I think we need to look at things and address them like we need them to function, whether it's a 500-year storm or not. We need these roads right. We need to get them correct. We don't need 1992, according to Chuck, to happen again. And we need leadership that steps up and bites the bullet and says, I know that we're going to make some people unhappy, but we're going to do this anyway.
Right.
But that's not for you. That was more directed at people for this referendum, and it's a big deal.
Sure.
Northport Forward is huge when it comes to gathering information. You can check them out on Facebook. They're not afraid to give you answers and do research. Northport Forward is definitely a great place for resource on referendums and what's going on in our community. Just like the city of Northport, they're getting the word out. We've had, unfortunately, situations right now with the last 3 weeks, going into four,
Yep.
that things have been dictated a little different. But I think we all need to start talking about that. One thing I want to mention while I got some listeners on is that Monday's show, I am actually going to be talking with a representative from FEMA. So if you guys can share the information about the FEMA show on Monday, that is a FEMA public relations person who's going to be talking to us as a city about, let's just say, anything that you had gotten a rejection letter on. Let's talk about the rejection letters. Let's talk about why they got sent. Let's talk about what has to happen, the flow of information. Stop listening to your neighbor. You're not, I'm positive that your situation is not exactly like your neighbor's. And you need to wise up and stop listening to the chatter, and let's go to the resource. We've had great resources, STC, the mall, in Port Charlotte, Chamber of Commerce has been extremely strong in getting all this data out and trying to have a helping hand. We need to stop listening to bad information, and you need to go right to the source. FEMA will be on Monday, 3:05. SBA, a partnership with these two people, they're going to be represented, and they're going to be trying to educate on the air exactly what you could get if you went and visited FEMA in person. I know, and I'm going to take a couple seconds here just to highlight this, but I've had past customers, I've had friends who have insisted on listening to people who are not in our state, who have used FEMA before. Last time I checked, Other states further north, they don't have hurricanes. So you can't use information from others and think you're getting the correct information. You have to go to the source. You have to explain your situation and you have to let them guide you. And then you have to let them tell you there's going to be a rejection letter and here's how you want to handle that. Not throw it away, get frustrated, tell all of your neighbors, I got a rejection letter, I told you so, because now you didn't do it the complete way. You just got the first answer. So
Right.
you want to get more information and you want to get accurate information and you want to ask questions. You know me, I'm going to throw it at them. And I want them to have the answers. I want you guys to have the answers. Please share for Monday's show. FEMA representative will be on, SBA representative will be on, and we will be talking about very, very, very helpful things of every citizen in Northport right now and surrounding communities because we've all been affected one way or the other. Unfortunately, I think with Northport, our citizens have been affected a lot differently in certain areas because they didn't have flood. And I want to talk a little bit with you about
Okay.
our controls that we had in play with our flood situations. They didn't fail; they got eroded around because of the amount of storm, right?
So the one we had at 106, the structure never failed. That was one of many misinformation fires we were trying to put out on the Friday after the storm. The water control structure itself. So what happened is an emergency alert was sent to the entire area instead of a small section of the north part of Sarasota County, that a levee had broken and the entire area was going to be flooded and needed to be evacuated. And then people saw pictures or heard about the water control structure there behind Winn Dixie and put two and two together because the alert came from a similar system to what the city of Northport sends out through Everbridge. Um, and that's what it's all of a sudden it became this dam behind Winn Dixie broke and it's going to flood the area and everybody needs to evacuate and it was something that really never was at any risk of coming to fruition. The water control structure was still there. It was still functioning like it was supposed to. However, erosion on the banks, given the sheer volume of water and the winds that were whipping that water against the banks, during the storm, during the 7 hours or so we sat in the eye wall, eroded the banks and the water was going around. Um, it didn't bring about any additional flooding to anybody that flooded south of that. Um, it just means the water essentially got there a little bit faster, not terribly faster, but a little bit. And the way the water control structure system is set up, we've got points every few miles down the river, down the waterway, so that it can't just all get out of hand just like that. Um, so Public Works was out on site that day, to put a temporary fix in place until we could get a more permanent solution, which actually came about pretty quickly once the storm had gone past and we could get contractors on site. They've been working day and night to get that area back up and running, back up to speed. None of our water control structures, as I understand it, have failed what they were supposed to do. We were dealing with an insane amount of flood water. There was at one point talk that the dam in the estates had broken or was gone. And had that actually been an issue, we probably would have had major flooding issues south of the estates. But the water control structure there, it was it was still there. You just couldn't see it because the water was so high that it was over top of it. It was over top of the bridge there in the estates, and it just, again, just an insane amount of water. So the structures held up. All of our structures are still intact. Um, it's there's been some erosion along the waterways. Along the Cocoa Plum Waterway, we've lowered the water levels so that crew can work on the erosion along the banks in a few areas. But again, the water control structures are there; they're functioning like they're supposed to. We didn't have any structure failures. It just comes down to Mother Nature at some point is going to do what Mother Nature wants to, and water is going to find its way where it wants to go.
Well, you got your hands full yet because we're a long way from done,
For
correct?
sure. For sure.
The city is working extremely hard on getting us back up and running. If there's anything that you wanted to share with citizens right now from Public Works on all the processes and how they can help and get involved, what would you tell them?
I would say once again, be patient. There's still a lot of work. We've got guys working day and night. Our crews along Price Boulevard have been working hard every day to make sure everything's in place. We're hopeful that part of the section between Toledo Blade and Chamberlain will be open soon. I can't say how soon exactly yet, but we're getting close there. And then once that's done, we'll hopefully be able to put all of our focus on the stretch between Salford and Sumter, and they're working as hard as they can, as quickly as they can to get the roadway open because we know Price Boulevard is a major artery for the city for people to get through town. I don't know. I don't know that I know anybody that hasn't been impacted in some form or fashion by those closures. I drop my kids off at Toledo Blade Elementary, and then I take the long way around to go down Chamberlain to get to work over here at Public Works. So as far as that goes, the road work, we're working as hard as we can to get those roads repaired, accessible as quickly as we can. Stop signs, neighborhood stop signs, street signs, things like that. We're working hard every day to try and get as many of those back up as quickly as we can. They're even working on Saturdays to try and get those done. So again, be patient with us. If your neighborhood has signs that are still down, feel free to let us know through the North Report app, and we will try to address it as quick as we're able to. Debris pickup, one big thing, and we've tried to remind people every couple days with it, and inevitably we still have a problem every few days with it. Please do not put your debris near other obstacles, your mailbox, under power lines, near power poles. And the big thing we've had an issue with, we've had a few people that learned the hard way. If you put your debris piles, trees, anything near or over top of your backflow equipment on your water system, the debris crews are not going to see it, and there's a good chance they're going to break it. I saw a picture from this weekend where they took the whole get up with them when they picked up the trees. There's nothing but two little pipes sticking out of the ground. So please, 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 if you're putting your trees curbside, if you're putting your other debris curbside, do your best to make sure that it's not near any other obstacles. It's not near mailboxes, your backflow equipment, especially because no one wants to lose that. No one wants to have a plumber come out, and the contractors are not going to be, they're not going to be held to pay for that because again, it's not really their fault. So just with the debris, make sure you've got it separated. No bags. They will not pick up bags. If you've got extra garbage out, leave it by your garbage can. Our bulk trucks are going along as they can to pick it up. Again, that's another thing that it just takes time. We've obviously seen an increase in all of that. So again, patience is the name of the game. We're getting there. Again, if you feel like your neighborhood has just been missed, You're invisible. I promise you, you're not. We're working our way there. If you check out our dashboard, our hurricane dashboard on the City of Northport website, you can see we've at least started collecting in most neighborhoods. The few that we haven't started collecting yet, they're scheduled next. And in some cases, we've actually picked up some in those neighborhoods. I promise you, no one's going to get forgotten. We're working hard to get there. There's a lot there to collect.
There's a ton. There's a lot less today than there was. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes left, but I want to remind everybody again, Monday's show, I'm going to have FEMA on and a member of SBA. These guys work together hand in hand. Please pass this along to anyone and everyone that you know, because they are going to give really valuable insight on what's happening with FEMA and SBA loans. And truthfully, if you don't know about the SBA loans that are out there, no better place to hear it than straight from a representative. So join us on Monday at 3:05. Send kudos out to anyone, and I'm going to go first responders. I'm going to send that out to any of the responders that came in from other states. I'm going to send that out to our own city representatives, and I can't begin to tell you how many and different departments, because people do different things at different stages within the city to keep all the wheels turning forward. I think what we need to remember is that everyone who's taken action to make our town turn around in less than 30 days needs to be appreciated, needs to be thanked, and needs to be remembered in this regard. Their home hopefully was untouched, but most of them, I have a feeling, were in the same boat the rest of us were in. And they were not just dealing with city issues, they were dealing with home life issues. Those of you who say they do that for a living and that's what they're getting paid for, okay, now take your bitterness and put it away. And remember that this was not your typical storm, and that the word thank you or I appreciate you needs to come out of people's mouth. And I will end the show with this. There's an easy way to know whether you're having a bad day or not. And it was represented by Pine Island, St. James City, Fort Myers Beach, Naples, Sanibel. If you think we have it bad here, open your eyeballs, pay attention to real things that are happening. While we have it bad, we don't have it as bad as others. And we need to appreciate the fact that we were able to turn our city around and make it look pretty much back to normal, considering in such a quick fashion. If you think we have it or you have it bad, the line of the day is, if this is the worst thing that happens to me today, I can live with it.
Sure.
That's all.
Absolutely.
And just remember to thank people for doing the right things. And any naysayers out there, just shut it down. Well, I just shut it down for a little while. Pick another battle. You're going to lose this one, because the rest of us are going to defend, defend, defend. Billy Public Works, I don't know if you want to add anything into that, but it's all yours, bud.
Absolutely. Just to build on that, as someone who was in the emergency ops center until Saturday night, I did not leave the building, mostly because I couldn't get to my home because the streets were flooded. Thankfully, the house was okay. But as someone who was there for essentially 5 days, to build on what you said, thank you to the first responders who I witnessed firsthand were working day and night, very little sleep, never really went home. The first responders from other cities, everybody who worked in the emergency ops center to try to keep the city functioning and get people the help they needed day and night while the city was flooded, trying to get to people to get them out of their homes. The Cajun Navy Florida Fish and Wildlife,
Yep.
all the volunteers who came down and just gave up their time to run airboats into the estates. Cajun Navy actually came and picked up my wife and kids, so they weren't on an island. They were safe, but on an island. So they came and got them so that I could actually see them finally Saturday night, a few days after the storm. Thank you to everybody who gave up their time and effort and you know gave up the time that they would have had to deal with their own issues at their own homes that we all dealt with. And they were here giving to the residents, giving to the citizens, giving their best efforts here to try and help as many people as possible and get the city bounced back. Utilities, I don't know how many crews they had working day and night to get city water back up and running, to get it fully functioning so we didn't need the boil water notice and everything like that. There are so many people who put in so much effort that just doesn't get seen. I think I, even just as a resident myself, thank you to all of them for everything they've done.
I appreciate it. This is John Rawlings with WKDW Radio 97.5 FM and KDWRadio.com saying thank you. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Billy, for being on, buddy.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk at you guys later. Join me on Friday, but seriously, share this information. Monday show, very hot topic. FEMA, SBA loans, the combination of the two. Bring your listening ears. Make sure that people around you are tuned in. If they've been rejected, have them listen. Please, 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 let's get this information out. This is mission critical just as much as the information that we were providing, not just during this show, but every show during, pre-hurricane and post. This is going to impact someone somewhere on Monday. Please share the information. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye now. Thanks, Billy.
Bye, guys.